You might be wondering what's in this box. But what if I told you God gave me that box? I bet you're even more interested now. But let's take it back a few years, because that's not the only thing that God has given me. No, that's too far. Change it fast. Nope, still too far. Although I guess it proves I've always been a rocker. But yep, that's me 4 years ago in my first band, Babyface Evan. Now you've seen it, so let's move on. I had just been playing for a few months and I was so close to perfecting the B minor chord. Back then I had started researching guitar, and although I had no idea what I was searching for, when I saw that Fender Strat, I knew that it was the guitar for me. So I began praying and believing God for it. A few months later, my dad was preaching at another church, and I was able to go with him. And then at the end of the service, somebody came up to me and said, God told me to take you down to Guitar Center and purchase the guitar that you've been believing for. Mind blown. The store just happened to be right down the road, and in the guitar store, I knew exactly where that guitar was. I made a straight beeline towards it. I finally had it, my dream guitar, and I was able to play with it and rock out with it for several years. But in that time period, I saw another guitar that struck my attention. And that was the first picture that I took. I found what seemed to be dream guitar number 2. So I started praying and believing God for it again for nearly 2 years, because it was in November of 2017 that I found it in the magazine. So I began praying for 2 whole years. And what you see right here is my very first time trying the guitar out. I've learned the importance of unwavering faith and never giving up. And the week before Easter of 2019, I felt led of God to do something. I got that instruction again, and it was hard. Because you see, money doesn't mean as much to me as it does most people. I'm a teenager, I don't let it control me. If I felt led to give some money, it doesn't really bother me that much. But this time, I didn't feel led to give money. I felt led to give my Fender away. I didn't know to who yet, but when Easter 2019 at my church came, I knew where I needed to send it. But I realized that it was a seed. And that day I played the greatest guitar solo I've ever heard in my life. I then sent it over to Israel, to a young musician just like me who had been praying and believing God for a guitar. What a miracle, right? This giving stuff kind of gets me a little happy. Then all of a sudden, jobs just started coming out of nowhere. Money started pouring in. I'm telling you what, it was crazy. And in just a few months or so, I had saved up enough money to buy a used Taylor T5Z. Now this one was in great condition. Everything was perfect about it. There was like a little teeny tiny nick on the neck, but I didn't really care too much about that. It was crazy, the price that I got off of it. I was stoked. All right, so the guitar came in the mail. Long story short, FedEx guy took it to the wrong address, threw it onto the property, signed it himself, and then ran. Yeah, not very cool. But once we got the notification it had arrived, we were like, well, it's not at our door, so we went and found the address that it was at, swapped out the packages, and brought the guitar home. It was finally in my reach. Opened up the box, pulled it out of the box, cracked the case open, opened it up, and there it was, the Taylor Molasses T5Z. It was more beautiful than I thought it was going to be. I pulled it out of the case. I played Stairway immediately, of course. And then I started examining it, looking at everything, like, all right, well, there's a little nick. It's not as bad as I thought. We're good. I went in and plugged it into an amp, started playing with it. Oh, it was just so perfect. I was surprised at how perfect it was. And then I did a little more of evaluation. I looked over here at the edge of the guitar, and I kind of had to stop for a second. There was a giant crack in the side of that guitar. You can see it right there. It was huge. It would run underneath both of the strap buttons. If I would have put on a strap too hard or something, it could have cracked it even more. And at that point, I could have gotten even more irritated and more agitated, and maybe even said, well, maybe it's not even God's will for me to have this guitar. But I didn't say that. I said, well, God's got something better for me, and the devil's gonna regret doing that. So we sent it back, and I started praying and believing. And now there's a whole nother part to this story that I'm just gonna have to do a whole nother video about. It's sitting right over there. You might have seen it in some videos already. You might have seen it at church if you've seen me playing it, but I'm gonna have to do a whole nother video about that one, so stay tuned for that. But I started saving up again, all right? And within, this is the crazy part. Within a month's time, I saved up enough money to buy a brand new version of the guitar. Just money started flowing in just out of random places. I saved up enough money to buy a brand new version of that guitar. Not even that version, a better version. I don't even know how this happened. This one is even more beautiful than the last. I didn't even know it was possible. And here we are today. This is Desperado. This has made me into a teen of faith, and over the next year, I'm going to help other teens on that journey as well. Here we go. You might be believing for something, but don't see anything happening. You might be praying for something, but don't feel any hope. Don't give up. Obey God and watch a miracle take place. There are many teenage musicians around the world that need direction, and the praise and worship team is one of the best places that they can find it. My goal is to help guide those teens and their teams along the journey of leading worship. We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there, so let's go.